Welcome back for another one. Please like and subscribe. I wanted to talk about the eviction of the single black woman. It's a crisis, and no one seems to be talking about it. Evictions do not affect everyone equally. Millions of renters in this country have struggled to make rent after losing income during the pandemic. And black renters, particularly black women, are more likely to be evicted than white renters. Jean Kendrick and her son were evicted during the early days of the pandemic. We follow their journey to find affordable housing, while examining the factors driving the racial disparities in eviction rates, including generations of racist housing policies and predatory home lending practices. Black women are expected to suffer the most from a potential overflow of evictions, found a USA Today investigation. The investigation closely examined King County, Washington, which has the highest eviction filing rate for black women than any other group. Per USA Today and data from the University of California, Berkeley, black women are more likely than any other group to face eviction. Evictions against black women get filed at twice the rate of white women nationally. In King County, black women are filed against at 5 times the rate of white renters, with sometimes less than $10 in back rent. Per USA Today, black women accounted for 16% of evictions while making up only 5% of the renter population. Eviction proceedings are mostly formalities, even if a tenant owes rent and can come up with the money. Hearings often last minutes and tenants are rarely given relief. It takes 3 weeks on average to get evicted in Washington state. Among the top evictors in King County were corporate landlords who had received subsidies and tax breaks for affordable housing. Many tenants who receive eviction notices end up abandoning their homes without challenging the eviction, often because they don't know how to do so. When they don't respond or show up to court, this leads to what is called a default judgment in favor of the landlord, meaning tenants have days to vacate the property. USA Today also found other factors that put black women at risk of eviction. They are more likely to be listed as single-parent leaseholders, have a higher probability of receiving nuisance citations from police, and are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. Upon eviction, they are not only at a great risk of being homeless but also experiencing a multitude of health issues that disproportionately affect them upon losing shelter. Per USA Today, it's always been the case that evictions turn families' lives upside down and make it even harder for families to find safe, stable homes in the future. These devastating effects fall disproportionately on black and brown women and children, said Sen. Sherrod Brown, chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs via USA Today. Documenting populations disproportionately at risk of eviction informs researchers, advocates, and policymakers striving to better understand and address long-standing disparities in access to stable housing. The lack of data on defendant gender, race, and ethnicity limit our ability to address some of the most pressing questions in the field. Are black and Latinx renters evicted at higher rates than their white counterparts? Are women renters evicted at higher rates than men? Is this true for all racial and ethnic groups? Answering these questions is central to addressing the long history of excluding women and communities of color from housing, banking, and credit opportunities in the U.S. Filing and eviction rates were, on average, significantly higher for black renters than for white renters. Nearly 1 in 4 black renters lived in a county in which the black eviction rate was more than double the white eviction rate. First, filing and eviction rates were, on average, significantly higher for black renters than for white renters. The share of eviction filings and eviction judgments against black renters was considerably higher than their share of the renter population. Black individuals made up 19.9% of all adult renters in the counties for which we had data, but 32.7% of all eviction filing defendants. 1 in every 5 adult renters in our sample was black, yet 1 in every 3 eviction filings were served to a black renter. By contrast, whites made up over half the population of adult renters but received only 42.7% of eviction filings. This resulted in a striking racial disparity. There were just under 40 black renters for every 100 white renters in these counties. Yet for every 100 eviction filings to white renters, we estimated that there were nearly 80 eviction filings to black renters. This resulted in a striking racial disparity. There were just under 40 black renters for every 100 white renters in these counties. Yet for every 100 eviction filings to white renters, we estimated that there were nearly 80 eviction filings to black renters. The average renter faced a 4.1% eviction filing rate and an eviction rate of 2.3%. Put another way, approximately 1 in 25 renters was threatened with eviction every year, and 1 in 40 was evicted. These rates varied considerably by race, ethnicity. Black renters experienced the highest average rates of eviction filing and eviction judgment. By contrast, the average eviction filing rate among white renters was 3.4%, and the average eviction rate was 2.0%. Nearly 1 in 4 black renters lived in a county in which the black eviction rate was more than double the white eviction rate. These patterns are reflected in Figure 2, which displays the distributions of filing rates and eviction rates for female and male renters by race, ethnicity. The absolute and relative disparities in total evictions were greatest for black renters: 113,415 women evicted compared to 83,182 men. For Latinx renters, we predicted 56,400 women evictees and 51,456 men evictees. Among white renters, there was a smaller gap in total evictions by gender: 153,954 women relative to 142,934 men. This study finds that black and Latinx renters in general, and women in particular, are disproportionately threatened with eviction and disproportionately evicted from their homes. Third, black and Latinx renters who were filed against for eviction were most likely to be repeatedly filed against at the same address. The average black renter experienced a serial eviction filing rate of 14.7%. Put another way, 1 in every 7 black renters who was filed against for eviction was repeatedly filed against at the same address. The equivalent average rates were 13.1% for Latin renters, 11.2% for Asian renters, and 9.7% for white renters. This study finds that black and Latin renters in general, and women in particular, are disproportionately threatened with eviction and disproportionately evicted from their homes. Black, Latin, and women renters are thus disproportionately exposed to the many documented negative consequences of eviction, from homelessness and material hardship to job loss and depression. Eviction is not only a consequence of poverty, but also a cause. The large racial disparities in eviction rates documented here likely contribute to U.S. racial and gender inequalities in economic, social, and health outcomes. This paper provides new evidence of the extent to which people of color, especially women of color, are systematically excluded from housing stability that could allow them and their families to flourish in society. This madness is going on all over this country. Single black women are being targeted. We need to speak up. That's all for now. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This is Reno in the Mix. Until next time, I'm out.